Welcome to Wednesday, November 1st. Here we are in November 2023. Your Day Weather Podcast brought to you by Cowboy State Daily, Wyoming's only daily newspaper. Check them out at cowboystatedaily.com and subscribe to their daily email newsletter. Yep, it's November and the skies and the look to it really showing up here over the last couple of days. Nice picture from Jana there of some cloud streets coming up across the horizon, and that's a good sign of stronger upper-level winds aloft and changing seasons. But westerly flow now, going to bring milder air into the western United States. So we're switching air masses, so that's going to lead to the warmer weather. That really got started yesterday. Strong jet stream winds, though, are going to be plowing into the Pacific Northwest. And eventually, what will be happening is those strong jet stream winds over time will translate to a more active weather pattern in the future. But what we will see is the Pacific Northwest getting wet, the northern Rockies, while windy areas will be noted along and east of the Continental Divide in the coming days. Nothing awful, but bouts of some windy periods. Now, small systems will occasionally be passing through these strong jet stream winds, causing those winds to be gusty, producing some showers up into the high country, but this is not a pattern of significant moisture on the plains. Rather, this is a pattern that's going to be bringing moisture to the mountains. More cloud streets offering up a beautiful Halloween sunrise yesterday in Casper, Wyoming. Now, as we take a look at more clouds on the satellite imagery, we can really see what's going on out here in the Pacific. So you can see this area of cloudiness right here, heading right towards the coast of Washington and Oregon. Strong jet stream winds are developing here. We've got an area of low pressure up here south of the Aleutians, while in the Intermountain West, we have some increasing high and mid-level clouds here. We've got some wave clouds, if you notice right here on the east slopes of Wyoming's northwest mountains, the winds coming over causing a wave feature. You'll start to see that more often this time of year. And there's the real cold air up in Canada, but it's being directed that way now. You can see the Pacific wanting to start to take over. And that's exactly what's going to happen. High pressure builds into the west today, that more westerly flow bringing more mild air in. Now this is for Friday. It doesn't look like much, does it? But we've got these little ripples going in, coming off of this main low up here off the Aleutians. This is basically just going to spit out little low pressure systems that'll move very quickly across the Pacific Northwest in the northern tier. So underneath those lows, on the windward side of the mountains, you're going to get wet. Along and east of the divide, especially where there are mountain gaps, you're going to have some windy areas. So this is where the precipitation falls through Friday. Right along what we just saw in the satellite imagery, it's basically just forcing a lot of moisture off the Pacific right into the land. And that's what will be happening here. So wet for British Columbia, Washington, Northwest Oregon. And then what's left comes over the divide into Montana, northwestern Wyoming, and Idaho and far northern California with dry conditions elsewhere out here. As we get into Monday, notice the low off the Aleutians pushes in closer, but it's still generally a west to east flow. But we're now looking at really strong jet stream winds. This is by Sunday morning. Notice we have a situation where we have west-east jet stream winds coming right into the Pacific Northwest coast. Not only is it just very, very windy up at 30,000 feet right here, but you're containing a lot of energy. There's a big temperature gradient between here and here, and that's just going to drive this. We had this several times last winter. We would call them, the media would call them atmospheric rivers. They're just jet stream winds that are very strong, but that moisture gets driven in by the Pacific, from the Pacific, starts to really make things go on. And when you have this kind of jet stream energy, you're going to eventually have it go from a straight line to a pattern that's going to want to buckle to where you're going to get an area of low pressure. This is for the period of Saturday through Monday. So this is for the next round. So Saturday through Monday, you can see how wet the Pacific Northwest is. The central and northern Sierra get into the action, but it's kind of the same areas that have the best chance for moisture. While along and south of Interstate 80, there's barely anything going on through early next week as these systems will take this route right here. But along the divide and the Continental Divide here, do expect some breezy periods at times. This is what the snowfall looks like total between now and the end of Monday of early next week. Snow levels are pretty high, but those mountain areas along the divide, west of the divide, will get moisture out into the colder air. You're going to see snow out there. Then as we get into the middle of next week, we start to see what's left of that Aleutian low come in. And this is what we talked about, the flow buckling and getting more wavy as that jet stream wind comes over the Cascades in the Sierra Nevada. So we're going to have some type of stronger low pressure system, probably a bigger weather maker, at least in terms of what may happen on the plains, towards the middle of next week. So when you have a really energetic pattern developing across the North Pacific, you will eventually start to see the weather patterns change and get more busy again. And there you can see the precipitation that falls early next week to mid next week. You can see a bit more gets east of the divide, and the flow starts to go a little bit more south with the pattern. And there's the snowfall forecast for a 3-day period from the middle to the end of next week. So we could see a little bit more weather, colder, unsettled weather coming our way. In the short term, though, it's this milder Pacific air that will bring us a warming trend. Have yourself a great first day in November. See you tomorrow.